Hello YouTube family, thanks for joining me on today's video, and it is dealing with the power issues in Texas, although those power issues could be expanding to other states, other areas, as the western United States has been in the grips of an insane heat and drought wave that's been the hallmark of the summer of 2021. And Texas's power grid continues to fail. There was 12,000 megawatts of power that went offline during the current heat wave frying the western United States. Residents were asked to keep their thermostats at 78 degrees during afternoon and evening hours. 12,000 megawatts is enough power to supply power to around 2.4 million homes. ERCOT, which is the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, is a governmental body with leadership appointed by the Texas governor. The actual power is maintained by independent private companies, and that is Texas's way. And I explained in a previous video I did of the winter issues with the Texas power grid, how their power grid failures are endemic to Republican ideology and the Republican Party. These private entities are not required to tell ERCOT why utilities went offline, so what you end up with is the ERCOT, the power overseer in Texas, made up of state government appointed leadership that's appointed by the Texas governor. They know what went offline. They don't know why that went offline. Daniel Cohen, an associate professor of civil and environmental engineering at Rice University, said ERCOT was not being sufficiently transparent in explaining what was going on and left Texans in the dark, both proverbially and literally. Was Texas's natural gas power production damaged by the winter storm? That's one of the questions that some of the experts in the field of power generation have, is whether the winter storm they had, which shut down the vast majority of Texas's power grid last winter, caused nearly 700 people to die. People literally froze to death last winter. And apparently natural gas can be susceptible to the winter storms. And you have some folks in the power generation fields that are various engineers and stuff that are asking the question of whether the natural gas power was damaged during the winter storm and whether things went offline to fix that finally. But there's no answers coming out of the government. Lawmakers and ERCOT went so far as to defend the natural gas power generation, and this is part of the story here. You have the issues with the power, and hopefully by now people in Texas are getting supremely fed up with this. And that's one of the issues you have with private companies, this whole PPP. Democrats are calling it P3, P cubed, whatever you want to call it. This public-private partnership stuff where you have private businesses running public utilities, that kind of thing. And it doesn't work. It's not been working. I mean, you have other countries. I believe Australia was a big proponent of the PPP thing before, and people really got tired of it and voted it out. And in Texas, you have a new coalition is called Texas for All. It is a coalition comprised of 35 national and Texas-based progressive groups. They plan on advocating against the restrictive voting changes Texas is expected to try and pass in their upcoming special legislative session. And one of the comments from this group is that the Texas Republican leaders are trying to preserve the entrenched political leadership of Texas by insulating themselves from the will of the people at the ballot box. And hopefully this group is successful. Hopefully it is. Hopefully they get the word out. Hopefully they let people know that if you like what's going on, I mean, due to climate change, most likely states like Texas are going to see it just get progressively worse as time goes on, because we're not fixing climate change. We're not fixing the climate. We're not fixing the issues we have. So most likely what you're going to see is things will get progressively worse. We'll have more severe winters. We'll have more severe summers. We'll have more severe droughts. There will be more severe wildfires. Everything is going to be crazier and more severe as time goes by. And that is what scientists have said in the past. And we've watched it play out on, exactly the way they said it would. So you have the Texas power grid, which could not handle the extreme cold in the winter. And Texans literally froze to death. Men, women, and children. Now you have the Texas power grid failing because of excess heat. The Texas power grid, as I've said before, is old. It needs to be updated. It needs to be winterized. And it needs to be overseen in a more proper way. It needs more regulation. I mean, that's the thing. Republicans are opposed to regulating private business, and that's why you have what you got in Texas, which is private business takes control of the power grid. Because, let's be honest. The power grid was put in place by the state, by the government, and then at one point, as Republicans moved more and more towards everything should be private, everything should be private, everything should be private, they ended up privatizing the power grid, which was in place. It was a large financial boon for the companies that took over the power grid, because all they had to do was manage a resource that was already there. Basically, if something broke, they fixed it. Other than that, they're just collecting all the money. It turned into large amounts of profits for the private companies. Those companies turned around and gave massive campaign contributions to the governors in Texas. To the current Governor Abbott. Before him, you had Rick Perry. Before him, you had George W. Bush. All these men were paid large amounts of money by the private power company to leave everything the way it is. Don't regulate us. Don't require us to do anything. Just let us keep collecting money from Texans while they die in extreme cold, while they die in extreme heat. If everything's moderate, then everything's fine. They'll get by just fine if everything's moderate. But once there's some kind of extreme weather, which due to climate change, we're going to see more extreme weather events, things will get bad. And in this photograph I have here, it's a little bit stylized, but it's saying no dogs, Negroes, or Mexicans. It's a plaque from the state of Texas from 1929. And this woman's trying to point out, the group there all together is trying to point out the racism that has existed institutionally in Texas for a very long time. That plaque was made by the state government, and it's a sign to keep certain entities out, and it's so utterly shameful. They're putting dogs, blacks, and Mexicans in the same group. Not allowed. And that's their point they're making against this voting restriction, which is targeted towards, let's face it, blacks, Hispanics, poor people, whether they're white, black, Hispanic, anybody that has a tendency to vote Democrat. There is legislation that's proposed in Texas to try and put hurdles in front of their ability to vote. That's what Texas is trying to do. They've got a special legislative session coming up. Previously, their attempt to pass this voting restriction, these voting restrictions failed. You had the Democrat walkout. You've got the Texas legislature going to try and attempt it again, and hopefully they will fail again. Hopefully this group, Texas for All, will get enough word out, will get people outraged, and get people motivated to push legislators in the state to stop their attempts to place hurdles in front of voters that typically vote Democrat. And you see all this legislation. I mean, what's going on in Texas is not unique. It's been passed in many other states. You know, you have a lot of news cycle stuff about the laws that got passed in Georgia, laws that got passed in Florida, laws that got passed in Missouri. They're getting passed. Red states everywhere are passing these laws that are making it more difficult for people to get out and vote. And it's based off of a lie. It's based off of the lie that there is voter fraud. You know, what the Republicans who are passing this legislation are saying is that there are people who don't trust that their vote is getting counted. You know, you have the Republicans saying there are people that don't have faith in our electoral process. These laws are made to put more faith in the electoral process, which the whole problem with Republican voters not having faith in the electoral process is the pushing of the big lie by Trump, by Republicans in this House, the Senate, and then in states all over the country. I mean, Greg Abbott's no different. He's trying to show that he's just as Trumpy as all the other Republican governors. And hopefully this group will stop it. They've got a lot of money collected, and they're going to use it on print media, digital media, presumably television, radio, to make sure people in Texas know that the legislature is going to try and pass restrictive voting measures. And you have some people from Texas who believe that Texas could flip blue. I've not put much faith in that because Texas has been so deeply red for so long. And honestly, I don't know if there are enough people in Texas to stand up to this restrictive voting measures. But hopefully there are. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully Texas will stop it. And come 2022, 2024, and elections beyond, we will have everyone possessing the ability to go vote if they want to. Hopefully nothing will be restricted in that capacity. And hopefully Texas will get rid of the entrenched power brokers that run the state, because they are Republican and they are the ones responsible for all these power problems you have in Texas. Because everything related to your power issues are endemic to Republican ethos. And that's why you've got the problems that you do. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. I hope you have a great day. And thank you. If you liked the video, please like. Please give me a subscribe if you're not subscribed already. But otherwise, have a great day.